Hello, Jack. It's super nice to have you on my podcast. And I know you're a campaign manager for Conservative Party. What challenges do you feel like Conservative Party is going through right now? Is that there is a lack of leadership, or people have lost faith in this party over the years, or what are the main problems to identify?
Well, look, firstly, Volodymyr, it's really nice to come on podcast. I think you're doing a great thing. And it's always good for younger people to get involved in politics and talk about the issues. And you bring up a big issue straight out the door there, which is where's the Conservative Party gone wrong? Let me start by saying I will absolutely accept and admit and be honest about the issues with the Conservative Party. But I do just want to start with a caveat. I think politics is broken across the board. And I think what you've seen in the last 6 months since Labour came to power in this country is that people were sold a lie, perhaps by the Conservatives when they were in government a bit, and I do agree with that. But people were also sort of lied by Labour. Labour came in and said they would be different. They said they wouldn't have scandals. Then we heard about the Lord Alley money. Then we heard about the jobs to the civil service for political appointments into the Treasury with no scrutiny. And it's gone on, and we've heard now about Keir Starmer this week talking about grooming gangs. There's so many examples of where Labour have completely failed their own test on honesty about insolvency. It's so little time. Yeah, I'm one of the biggest critics of Labour that you will find in this country. And even I, Volodymyr, have been surprised by how quick Labour mess things up. But you are right to say that the Conservative Party were to blame quite a bit of the distrust in politics. And I think fundamentally, I wrote an article recently about this. I think the Conservative Party made three fundamental mistakes if we're gonna draw into it. Number one, they didn't deliver enough. So there were not enough different areas in the country where after 14 years of us being in power, initially with the Lib Dems, but most of the time on our own, that people could look at and say the country is better. I think there were a couple. I think the country is a safer place because of this Conservative government. I think they've dealt with some of the defence situations very well, whether that was the Syrian civil war when we got involved in 2013, whether that was withdrawing from Afghanistan, which I think was the right decision, or whether that was the bombing in Syria that we did with Trump and Macron under Theresa May in 2017, or whether that was the response that we led the way. We were the pioneers of the world on the Ukraine crisis when that came up in the 2020s. So this Conservative government has been good on foreign policy. I think they've been good on education. I think we've seen last night a shambolic Labour government overturning educational reforms that took us from the sort of 20s to the 10s in science and reading and math. And what's happened in Labour-run Wales? They've gone backwards. They dropped down the ranking tables in the same time that we've gone up in England. So they were good on education. And then I think they were good on employment. Or there'd be millions more people employed in this country than we had in 2010. We had an unemployment rate back then about 8.6%. It's about 4.5 today. So employment is another success. But quite rightly, people will say, what else? And that's where we struggle. And on a number of the key issues, and I think if I was to pick a couple of them, immigration, tax rates, and the NHS would be the three that would spring to mind, we didn't do it. We didn't do what we said. We said we would reform social care under Johnson. We didn't achieve it, or we didn't achieve it in a substantial enough way for people to feel that the NHS got better. We said we cut immigration, it's gone up, and we said that we were a low tax party and we pushed it to the highest tax rates in 75 years, although it's ironic of Keir Starmer to criticise for that. Yeah, after that, because they've gone on heading raised taxes. They've raised them even more. So we didn't achieve everything. So that's issue one. We didn't deliver enough. Number two, we weren't conservative enough. We're a conservative party. We've got to appeal to small C conservatives, ordinary voters, cultural conservatives, people across the country that believe in a small state, low taxes, protecting British interests, the nation state before globalism. We didn't deliver on any of those priorities. And I think you look, for example, our net zero response. Was it a conservative response? We used the state. We enforced mandates on electric cars and on boilers. And only Sunak, towards the end of our time, pushed back a bit on that. We should have had a free market conservative response to climate change. And I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that. And then there was too much infighting. Number three, there was way too much infighting. 5 different prime ministers, 16 housing ministers, I believe, constant infighting, constant resignations, leadership challenges. We just look like a broken party that ran out of ideas. And that often happens, I think, once you get past about 10 years in government. So we didn't deliver enough. We weren't conservative enough. And there was too much infighting. And that was why the country rightly kicked us out. And we've got to change all those things if we want to get back in.